There is a country with no farmland, almost no factories, and no oil beneath its ground. It's smaller than the city of Manhattan. Its entire population could fit inside a single football stadium. And yet, by some measures, it has one of the highest income levels of any place on Earth. Richer per person than the United States, richer than Switzerland, richer than almost anywhere you've ever heard of. It isn't an oil kingdom. It isn't a banking empire built over centuries. It's a tiny cluster of islands in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, roughly 650 miles from the nearest continent, best known to most people for pink sand beaches and a mysterious triangle that swallows ships. So how did Bermuda, 21 square miles of coral limestone with barely 64,000 people, end up one of the richest places alive? The answer isn't tourism. It isn't luck. It's something far stranger, and it's been quietly rewriting the rules of global finance for the last 50 years. Let's follow the money. Before we explain how, let's actually look at the numbers, because on paper, none of this should be possible. Bermuda has no significant agriculture. It imports almost everything it eats. It has no oil, no gas, no minerals, and barely any manufacturing at all. It sits on a chain of volcanic islands so small that its entire landmass could fit inside New York's Central Park roughly 4 times over. And yet, measured by GDP per person, Bermuda routinely ranks among the very highest in the world, often surpassing the United States, Switzerland, Norway, and Singapore. A country most people can barely find on a map has, by some economic measures, out-earned some of the most powerful economies on Earth per capita for decades. Something clearly doesn't add up. A place this small, with almost no natural resources, doesn't get rich by accident. It gets rich by design. And the design behind Bermuda's wealth starts with something most people have never heard of: reinsurance. To understand it, we have to go back to a night in the summer of 1609, when this design wasn't a plan at all, it was an accident. Bermuda wasn't settled on purpose. It was settled by accident, and that accident quietly shaped everything that came after. In 1609, an English ship called the Sea Venture, sailing toward the new colony of Jamestown, was caught in a hurricane and wrecked on Bermuda's surrounding reefs. The survivors, expecting to find a barren rock, instead found an island so lush and livable that some of them tried to stay behind rather than continue on to Virginia. Within a few years, England formally claimed the islands, and Bermuda quietly became one of the oldest continuously self-governing British territories on Earth. For the next 3 centuries, Bermuda's value to the British Empire had almost nothing to do with wealth. It had to do with position. Sitting almost exactly between Britain, the Caribbean, and the eastern coast of North America, Bermuda became a critical naval base. A place to refuel, resupply, and protect shipping lanes that Atlantic trade depended on. It wasn't rich. It was strategic. And that distinction matters because it meant Bermuda spent centuries building something most resource-poor places never get the chance to build. Stable, trusted institutions under the protection of one of the most powerful empires in the world, with almost none of the economic baggage. By the 20th century, that stability became Bermuda's most valuable export. Not sugar, not cotton, not oil. Trust. And trust, it turns out, is exactly what one very specific global industry needed most. Here is the industry almost nobody thinks about that quietly built Bermuda's fortune: reinsurance, insurance for insurance companies. When a hurricane flattens a coastal city, or an earthquake levels a region, ordinary insurance companies often can't absorb the losses alone. The payouts would bankrupt them. So insurance companies buy their own insurance from specialized firms called reinsurers, who spread catastrophic risk across the entire globe. In 1992, Hurricane Andrew tore through Florida and caused such massive insurance losses that dozens of American insurers collapsed overnight, unable to pay their claims. Global reinsurance markets scrambled for capital, and a small island in the Atlantic with almost no risk of hurricanes ever hitting it directly at that scale, low taxes, and a stable legal system built on English common law, quietly became the perfect place for global investors to set up brand new reinsurance companies almost overnight. It happened again after Hurricane Katrina in 2005, and again after major storms and disasters throughout the 2000s and 2010s. Each time a disaster overwhelmed global insurance markets, fresh waves of capital flowed straight into Bermuda, and new reinsurance firms were incorporated there within months. Today, Bermuda isn't just a participant in global reinsurance. It's one of its 3 largest hubs on Earth, alongside London and Zurich, a significant share of the insurance capital covering major disasters anywhere in the world. Hurricanes in Texas, earthquakes in Japan, wildfires in California, is quietly backstopped by companies headquartered on this single small island. Every time a skyscraper in New York, an oil rig in the Gulf, or a cruise ship in the Caribbean is insured against catastrophe, there's a real chance that some portion of that risk sits right now on a balance sheet in Bermuda. Reinsurance explains why the money arrived, but it doesn't fully explain why it stayed. For that, we need to talk about taxes. Bermuda charges no corporate income tax, no capital gains tax, no withholding tax on dividends. For a global insurance or reinsurance company, that means profits earned anywhere in the world can be booked through a Bermuda-based entity and legally avoid layers of taxation that would apply almost anywhere else. This isn't a loophole hidden in fine print. It's Bermuda's entire economic model, built openly and deliberately over decades. And it works because of something the island offers that pure tax havens with weaker institutions cannot: genuine regulatory credibility. Bermuda's insurance regulator is respected enough that international bodies, including regulators in the European Union and United States, have granted it a level of formal recognition most offshore centers never receive. In other words, Bermuda isn't just cheap. It's trusted and cheap, a combination that turns out to be extraordinarily rare and extraordinarily valuable in global finance. The result shows up directly in the income statistics. A huge share of Bermuda's official GDP isn't generated by local shops, farms, or factories. It's generated by the profits of international companies legally headquartered there, employing relatively small local teams to manage enormous global balance sheets. When you divide that concentrated corporate wealth across just 64,000 residents, the per-person numbers explode upward, creating one of the strangest economic averages on the planet. So does that wealth actually reach the people living there? The answer is complicated, and it's the part of the story most headlines leave out. Bermuda genuinely does have one of the highest average incomes in the world, and a standard of living to match, but it also has one of the highest costs of living on Earth. A single carton of milk or basic groceries can cost multiples of what the same items cost in the United States or the UK, because almost everything on the island, from food to fuel to building materials, has to be imported by sea or air. Housing is similarly extreme. With so little available land and such enormous foreign wealth concentrated on a tiny footprint, home prices in Bermuda rank among the highest anywhere in the world, pricing many longtime residents out of neighborhoods their families have lived in for generations. And the wealth isn't evenly distributed. International executives and specialists working in reinsurance and finance earn extraordinary salaries, while many Bermudians working in retail, hospitality, and other local industries face a cost of living that can outpace their wages, creating a visible gap between the island's headline statistics and the daily reality for many of the people who call it home. Here's the part of Bermuda's story that should genuinely make you think twice. This entire fortune is more fragile than it looks. Bermuda's wealth doesn't come from something it owns. It comes from a role it plays inside a much larger, constantly shifting global system. Its entire economic model depends on international tax rules staying favorable, on global regulators continuing to recognize its institutions, and on major economies not deciding, collectively, to close the door on offshore financial centers altogether. In recent years, that door has already started to narrow. Global minimum corporate tax agreements pushed by organizations including the OECD have specifically targeted the kind of low-tax structures Bermuda has relied on for decades, forcing the island to introduce its first-ever corporate income tax for large multinational companies, starting in 2025, something that would have been unthinkable for most of Bermuda's modern history. And there's a second vulnerability hiding in plain sight. Bermuda sits directly in the Atlantic hurricane belt, ensuring much of the rest of the world against catastrophic storms, while remaining exposed to the very same risk itself. A truly direct, catastrophic hit on the island wouldn't just damage homes and infrastructure. It could threaten the reinsurance capital the entire local economy depends on. Bermuda didn't get rich by having something the rest of the world needed to dig up or extract. It got rich by becoming something the rest of the world needed to trust. And trust, unlike oil or gold, can change its mind. Oh, why is Bermuda one of the richest places on Earth? Not oil, not tourism, not luck. A shipwreck that became a colony that became a naval outpost, an outpost that became a tax structure the rest of the world quietly built its financial safety net on top of. 21 square miles, 64,000 people, and a piece of nearly every major disaster insured anywhere on the planet. Sitting quietly in the middle of the Atlantic, one policy change away from everything shifting again. If this changed the way you think about wealth, hit subscribe because we go deeper into the strangest economies on Earth every single week. What surprised you most about Bermuda's story? Let us know in the comments. We'll see you in the next one.